Hi everyone, in this video we want to build this registration page. So on this fresh web page, we have the registration form here with a sign up interface. We have the input field for all the elements we will need, all the registration elements. We have the input fields for the first name, the last name, email, password, date of birth, and also a button to submit. And on the submit button, we have this cool hover effect. When we hover, you see the background color changes and the color for the text also changes as well. And this is how our form works. Whenever we focus on any of the inputs, you will see the label is transformed a little up. So we can enter whatever we want to. Say first name, and if I take the cursor off it, it still remains the same. So over here, we can enter the last name. Say do something. So the email will be daniel@gmail.com, and we can also enter the password and submit. Once we click the submit button, everything is set to default. We also have these two light circles at the background, which are also part of the HTML markup. And also, if you look at the box, the form container itself, you'll realize that we have this box shadow around it, which adds some color to it. So this is what we want to build in this video. So grab your tools because we are starting right now. On my desktop, I create this folder and name it form demo. So I'll just drag this and drop it in VS Code, which is my code editor. And over here, I'll just create a new file, call it index.html. I also create another file and call it style.css. So in the index.html, we just create the basic boilerplate, type exclamation and key tab. So we can call this one form, which is the title. And after this, we'll link the HTML to the CSS and the style.css. In the body, I'll create a div and give it a class wrapper. In this div, we'll create one div and give it a class light. We'll copy this div and paste again. Now let's style this in the CSS. Over here, I want to select the entire document and give some default styling. We'll remove all margins, set all paddings to 0, box sizing to border box. Now the wrapper div. Give width 100%, 100 VH. Set background color black. Now back in the HTML, we'll run this with the VS Code Live Server extension. Here we have an empty web page with nothing on it, so let's continue. Now let's start the two divs with the light class. Light, give them width 200 pixels, height 200 pixels, border radius 50%. Position should be absolute. Background color, this RGB color code. Now we can save this to see what we have. This is what we have, but for now, let's set the display for this to none for the meantime. Now we don't have anything over here and we can focus on the form itself. So let's start with this one. So after the light div, we'll create a div and give it a class container. And inside this container div, we'll create a form, set the action to a hashtag because it's not going anywhere. And we'll give it a class login form. And in the form, we'll create an H2, give it a text, sign up here. That is the header we have here. So now let's give the CSS for the container. So set width 100%, height 100%, background color, this RGB color code, set display flex, align items center, justify content center. Now let's style the form in the container div. Container form. We set width 300 pixels, height 410 pixels, background color, this RGB color code, box shadow. We give it 2 pixels, horizontal and vertical displacement, a blur effect of 5 pixels, and this RGB color. We want it to be inside of the box, so we put the word inside. And after this, with a comma, we set the box shadow for the other side of the box, 2 pixels for the displacement, 3 pixels blur effect, and this RGB color code. So when we run this, this is what we have with the box shadow. So let's start the H2 inside of it. It's inside the login form. We set the color, this RGB color code, text align to center, font size 1.5 rem, font weight 600, margin top 5 pixels, margin bottom 15 pixels. Now it looks okay. So after the H2, let's create a div. Inside of it, we'll create the input field and the label. So let's start with the input. Type is text, name should be first name, ID should be first name, and let's make it required. Now let's create the label for it. Label for first name. And the label text is first name. So now let's copy this div and duplicate it for last name, email, and password. So instead of first name, we make it last name. Last name. Last. And for the email input, we set the type to email. 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 And now for the password, the type will be password. And this will be password as well. So after the password, we'll paste one more time for the date. And for the date, we don't need the label, so we can remove it and make this one date of birth, DOB. We can remove the name and make the type date. And after the date, we want to create the anchor tag here, forget password. So after this div, we'll create an A tag and set the href to a hashtag. And the text is forget password. And after the A tag, we want to create a button with the class submit btn. And the text is submit. So this is all the HTML we need. So when we run this is what we have. So let's add the CSS for it. So let's start with the divs in the login form. I'll give the CSS for it. We set the width 90%, give it some padding, margin auto, margin top 10 pixels, and text align to center. So now let's start the labels inside of it. I'll give this CSS for it. So we give it this CSS styling. We set the color, give it some padding, set the position absolute, left 2 rem, top 10 pixels, decrease the font size to 0.9 rem, the font family to this one, and set the Z index to 10 so that it can be shown over any items that it lies on. So now after the label, let's style the input. We set the width 250 pixels. We'll give it a transparent background color and set the text color, this RGB color code. And we'll give it a negative margin to the bottom. Give it a padding to the left. This is what we have, and our label text is somewhere at the corner here, and we don't want that. So over here in the div, we set position relative. Now we get what we want. So now let's start the anchor tag and also the submit btn. So in the login form, we set the width to 90%. Set margin auto. Padding left 6 pixels. Margin top 6 pixels. We increase the font size and set the color to this RGB color code. So when we save this, now it looks better. So let's start the submit btn. So we select the login form again. And since this is the only button, we can select it by the type name. And let's give the CSS for it. Set display block. And this is the CSS for the button too. So when we save this is what we have, and we seem to have much more space left at the bottom. So let's increase the margin between these elements over here. So in the div, instead of margin top 10 pixels, we can make it like 17. Yeah, let's see how it looks. And this looks quite okay. So let's just increase the margin between the forget password and also the input elements. So in the anchor tag, we have margin top 6 pixels. Let's make it 10 pixels. Now it also looks quite better. So let's increase the gap between the forget pass and the button for submit. So for the button too, we can make this 15 pixels. Now this looks good. So let's add the hover effect for the button. So after the button, we can select it again. Colon hover. When we hover, we change the background color to this RGB color code. And we change the color to black. So now, when we hover over it, the background color changes and the text color also changes. But it happens very swift. So let's add some transition. So in the button, we'll add transition. 0.4 seconds is in and out. Now it takes a transition of 400 milliseconds. So now let's add the focus effect so that when we focus inside of it, you see the label here is transformed out a little bit for all of them. So over here, after the input, we'll select the input, colon focus, and after that, we'll take the label and a comma, and we'll take the input again when it's valid. That's when we have an element inside of it. And again, we'll take the label and add this styling to it. We'll set the top -6 pixels. We'll decrease the font size 0.8 rem, 0.8. We'll set the color to this RGB color code. Then we set font family to this one, Gill Sound. Then we'll remove the first one. We don't want the first one, it's too big. Then we'll set background color to this RGB color code. And when I save this and head over to the form, you'll see that whenever I focus on any of the input fields, the label transforms out, but it happens very swift. So let's add some transition to it. So in the label, let's add this transition, the label here, 0.2 seconds. It should ease in and out. Now when we focus on it, it takes some time, takes some transition. So now we can enter something. Say this is my name. Can enter some password, some random one. Then we submit. This is required. So let's remove the required from the date. It can be very annoying to be selecting dates here and there. So the required, we can remove it from here. This way we can fill out our form. Daniel, I've changed my name now from Coda to do something at gmail.com. So we generate some random password. Now we can submit and everything is set. What if I enter something over here? Let's say the last name is also, but over here the email, I enter something like this and click out. You see that the input comes back in. This because the text inside of it is not valid. It's not an email. So unless you put a valid email, you won't get the distance to work, the transition to the transformation to work for the label item. So let's put a valid email, something that contains at, let's say fake at email. Now it should work. It doesn't come back because now we have an @ sign over here indicating that this is an email. So folks, we are actually done with the most important parts of the video. So now let's add the light circles over here, the ones we set the display to none initially. So over here in the CSS, we'll remove the display none. And now you can see our circles back at the corner here. And first thing, we'll add some filter. So let's add some filter, blur. Let's give it 20 pixels. So there you have the blur effect for it. So let's now move them to their respective positions. So for that, we'll select the first one using the pseudo class, light, on first child. We'll set top 70 pixels, left 350 pixels. And for the second one, the light, child, and it's the second one. We set top 50, right 380. So when I save this, This one we have, oops, this one's supposed to be bottom. The second one, it should be bottom, not top. So now it's well positioned and everything is in place. And folks, this is basically how we've come to the conclusion of this video, how we build this registration form using HTML and CSS. If you find any value in this video so far, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this one. If you have any question, do leave it in the comment section below. I'm Daniel. Thanks for watching.